Hi, I'm Denise DeFara, and this is my vlog where I just talk you through sometimes some of the pieces I'm creating and the thoughts behind the process that I'm going through. So working on a small board painting, this one over here, that's how she is at the moment. I think she's finished. And so you'll see quite a lot of the progress pieces of that one. And I learned again, but I learned that, when you're a bit cranky, it's not the ideal time to try and finish a painting. And I got really reminded of the value of doing something in the sketchbook. So you'll see me talking about these two. So instead of working it all out on the paintings, I was encouraging myself to go into the sketchbook. And then I did two more because I liked the first two too much to keep going forward with them. So it was, I'm taking you through the process of how those things eventuated and the thoughts behind them. So I hope you enjoy it, and it's a little bit longer today, so maybe take it in a few chunks, come back to it with a cup of tea. I know that I've been so inspired. You'll probably hear me mention her in all my videos. I don't know until when, but as my husband's been binge watching Star Trek, I've been binge watching Sandy Hester videos. I'm so deeply grateful for her, the encouragement to just paint in the sketchbook. Oh look, I've got all these light reflective, that's okay, that's just the sun coming in the afternoon. It's very hot summer here at the moment. I hope this video is enjoyable, helpful, and if you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to write them down below. And if you're a new follower, thank you so much. It's really heartening to see the numbers go up a little bit each week, each time I post a video. It is really lovely to think that these are reaching people, and I hope that they're helpful. Okay. I've just been standing here reflecting on these 4 boards that I started some weeks ago, and now I keep wanting to return to them and finish them. And I'm finding, it's quite challenging sometimes to return back to the energy space that you were in when you create something. And something that is glaringly obvious to me, well, a few things, but one is that I'm finding this color palette is a little bit strong. I've spoken about this before, in a way that the palette is sort of not suited to my climate and where I live. So that can sometimes then reflect on, maybe if it goes into the local market, it won't be picked up. And so that's a small consideration. But the other thing is I'm finding the palette myself just a bit strong. And what is really obvious to me at this moment is if I would play more in my sketchbook and do, say, the same thing on a sketchbook page, I would not hesitate as much, I'm thinking, and trying other things, trying new things. Like I just went in this and just put dabs of the green over this turquoise. And then I've also realized from something I've picked up over the last few months, these are boring because they all look the same. And so that wants to change. So it's quite fun that, always learning by doing. And so what I feel like would be maybe most helpful now is to do a couple of exercises in my sketchbook of this kind of ladies and go for it with learning or discovering new color palettes. And part of me gets annoyed with that. It feels like that's wasting time. Like you think, if you just knuckle down, you could finish these paintings. But I've tried this many times before, where if you're not quite sure, then you might go ahead and do something completely annoying and wrong, and you end up painting the same thing 6 times anyway. So that's what's apparent to me in this moment. I'll let you know how I go. It sort of like will take some discipline to stop doing this and go back to the sketchbook. I've got a commission painting over the back here that I want to make a different video and talk about.
Was it when you kissed your 5-year-old goodnight and she turned to you solemnly and said, "Thank you for loving me so much"? That was it.
I decided to use ink on these 2 pages because I thought they would dry more quickly and sort of dry a bit matte. Yeah, but mostly so that they would dry more quickly, because I didn't want to spend too much time in this, but I wanted to see what could happen if I could play a little on the page. As I'm visiting with these now, I'm kind of struck by when I just go for it with with a really messy hand and not worrying, which I have to say, this sketchbook really makes much easier. Just love the gift of that. And I'm just sort of noticing some things. One, I haven't got any of that dark black outlining. I chose to draw these in just a sort of a sienna type. You can see it there, like a reddish brown color. That's what I just roughly drew them in with. And then as I look at them now, it's really really satisfying to look at them as they are now. And it's a real tricky one I almost feel like starting fresh ones to go again, because there's some things about these that I'm fascinated by, and I know they will be lost if I just keep going in my normal way. So that's what I've come to at this moment. I might change my mind. I know that I'm tempted to get in with a black pen and just do all the details, but just the subtlety and the looks on these faces is just so soft. It's really kind of sweet, and seeing this sort of pale pinks with the dark green is sort of I like making the table lighter instead of the deeper colors, which I usually enjoy. So that's where I'm at the moment, and it's been quite a lovely little adventure whilst listening to a book. So I notice I much prefer when there's a messy background, like I've said before. And then so there's that watery, leafy pattern. And then I painted the background with a matte background paint. So I really love the contrast between that. Those light the sort of transparent paint in the leaves, and then the matte next to that. I love that contrast. What I'm noticing is I am doing, as I said I would, redoing these. This one just came out terrible. And then I've been a little bit more considered doing this other one. And a few things I'm noticing, just this paler palette, there's a softness to it. Actually, so I notice I'm a little bit impatient with this process. I'm feeling a bit crabby and trying to come into the studio and just potter around and have it like it doesn't matter. So I've been doing a little bit on my in my sketchbook, but I'm not pleased with how they're turning out at all. So it's interesting when you're feeling that way. It's probably not the best time to experiment, but if I remember, sorry this is shaking because I'm just holding it. If I remember that I decided at the beginning to treat these boards as if they were sketchbook pages, then I'm just, again, learning by doing. And interesting, yeah, I just think I've got to be patient, keep at it, and see what wants to happen next without having too much at stake, you know. It's not a big deal. It's not the most efficient way of working at all. I've got, you know, various selves might have big issues with wasting time, wasting materials, whatever. I wonder if you go through that too, where there's just so many other opinions going on in your head, but, you know, just sort of, I'm trying to be kind and compassionate with myself and just, this really doesn't matter. It's just paint. And keep going. What I think I'm trying to say is with these two here, especially with this one, I actually got bored. I got bored between getting excited and doing this and then liking sort of parts of what happened, not wanting to be rid of them because I wanted to keep them for reference of some kind. Then when I started redrawing those figures, it felt so kind of tedious that I just lost interest and didn't do it very well. So I've had to move the features of her face right down. They were too high. And then I kind of got over it and I've moved over onto this one. And just even doing this lighter palette, there's a real different feeling. I'm very, color really speaks to me. And so that's probably why these ones, I'm not sure what to do with them because there's elements of them that are speaking their own story, you know. So in some ways, I wonder if I'm better to just abandon needing them to be different. Especially this one's so close to being finished. I feel like I need to leave it well alone until I know for sure I get like a message. It needs to be this, this, and this, and I'll just do those things. Because if I start mucking around on there, I'll just kind of get frustrated, wishing I would have left it alone, I think. You know, I'm better off to go over here with this one and be radical with how I do that one. And then I have one more other board under there that I can start again as well. And I've got to realize to not be so
wedded to the palette, the under layer, but it's really hard because I love this randomness of marks. And so far I've only found it easy to do that at the start when there's nothing stopping you. And sort of same over here. I love that crazy wild background. So that's my dilemma at the moment, and I'll see if I can keep bringing you along on the journey of where these go. I've been trying some experiments here. So I glazed over that with the ink. This, I went and made dark mark, sort of trying to make some sort of designy pattern with the black, thinking that I would do a wash over it. But what I tried was Neo Color crayon, colouring it in, and then using matte medium with a brush. I don't think I liked the result, but I was curious as to what would happen if I used the brush to, in effect, dissolve the crayon and then give it like a seal, that sort of a matte finish. So what I notice here is I'm not liking the color palette very much. All I'm loving probably is the green, and I don't like much of anything else. I'm trying to be experimental, and in some ways it's exactly what I was suggesting, that if I would play more in the sketchbook, I could maybe figure out some of these things.
Sure enough, I got impatient, got out the fine line black pen and went ahead and drew in the features and faces and outlines and things. And it was so interesting because I was not very impressed with them afterwards. So it's showing me new things. You know, that was like a knee-jerk reaction of what I've done before. And so I'm trying to do new things. So it was just interesting to notice, okay, that's what happens when you do that. It's just not as spontaneous as when you draw loosely and then you colour in. I don't know, it's not a blanket decision that this is the wrong thing all the time, but I just noticed how in this case it didn't really add life to these pieces in a way that I might have wanted. Yeah.
Hello again, for those of you following along at home. I was thinking about this. I woke up thinking about this painting, and I thought, oh, I'll revisit. And you know, if I look at it now, this is my favorite part. This here, because it's so rough. You know. And I realized I started to get a little bit tidy, a little bit too tidy. The more you can leave a little bit of what was behind, more energy comes along with that, I find. And I'm trying to make these leaves be interesting in the way that when you do a messy background and come back in, you just can't recreate that kind of spontaneity. So it's really showing me that I have quite a problem in my own mind with painting pattern on. I prefer finding random pattern. So that's what I'm learning, and I also think it might need a bit of turquoise in here somewhere. So I'm going to go back in, and also I got myself a piece of red Perspex. So this is an A5 size. And I left the sticky stuff on so that I would be able to pick it up with painty hands and not ruin it. But that, if you have a look through that, it's a good way of seeing your values, the values of how they're going. So that actually caused me to lighten up her whole outfit. She was wearing deep green, and so that can be helpful. And do you know, it's actually really, really hot here.
and so these colors are sort of a bit warm as well. So this painting is sort of almost from another era and another climate, so it's interesting to observe as well. And then I'll just keep going. So I did end up changing the background to the pale turquoise and adding another leaf behind the couch, because there was quite an empty space there in the top left. It's so interesting how much you can pack into a tiny square painting. And when there's so much happening on one side and then not much at all on the other, I just felt like it needed something else in that place. I would have liked to have painted another little painting in there, but I tried a couple of drawings. I tried all kinds of actually options, big spots, big circles as if they were painted plates, squares as if they were little portraits. And I just abandoned that because I felt like I'm just, it's like when you start over-capitalizing on a building, you're just throwing things at it and it's not quite what it wants. And so I thought, look, it's just simpler in this case to do another leaf. And I'm just putting the little centers and all the little daisies there, which hard to say whether they needed those or was it better to just leave them as sort of a hint of a daisy. But there you go. That's that sort of over-controlling part that I have that gets a bit fixated sometimes, especially if you start fixating on one particular painting, you can overpaint or overdo it. And then coming towards the end there, I was looking and thinking, is there anything else calling out that wants attention? And what I was annoyed at was the cup and the bottom of the vase and the plate of lemons all being sort of in a row. It would have been better if they were more staggered. And so I added another plate in behind that sort of vase to just mess up that table a little more and not make it like they were in a row.
Hey, so thanks for watching. I think that's all for now, and sorry that some of the videos were not in the right order. I've been using an old phone and new phone to record little snippets as I go, and so these are not really how-to videos. They're more, this is how I'm doing it, and explaining why and that kind of thing. That's what they're about at the moment. So I hope that wasn't too discombobulating, but I kind of thought in the way that things flowed and then finished, they kind of made sense in the end. And so I wouldn't be surprised if little bits of these paintings do continue to change, but I really learnt a strong lesson that the more I could let myself go in the sketchbook, the better my paintings will become, because there's more freedom in the sketchbook for sure. And as I heard Sandy say in a video that I watched with my lunch, she was, people were saying, why do you do beautiful finished paintings in your sketchbook? And she has a number of reasons, but sort of a couple of important ones were, one, when the painting's sold, you no longer have it to use as reference. And I have really found that, because for the most part of my time painting, the pieces have gone and there's not that many left at all in the house that span the distance of time I've been painting. Whereas if I would have a constant or consistent sketchbook practice of making paintings in there, I would have those, to refer back to a little more. Much different than a photo. And so that's what Sandy was saying also, the joy of being able to flip through a sketchbook that you've made with your paintings in it. So that is probably one of my goals for 2023, is to let myself paint more in my sketchbook and maybe even shout myself an A3 Moleskine, which they're really expensive. Paper and sketchbooks tend to be quite expensive in Australia, I think more so than the States. Maybe just because you've got such a much bigger opportunity. But I keep visiting them online, visiting the shopping pages, the art platforms, as to And I'm trying to figure out, there seems to be a number of different types. Some of them are like an art block, some are watercolor, some are not. So I might have to investigate a little further as to which Moleskine journal Sandy uses, because she raves about it and loving it. It makes quite a difference in how your paintings go on the surfaces, with the quality of the paper, whether it's sized and stuff. And I, because I've been doing some big commissions, I've decided to shout myself a bunch of Liquitex matte paint specifically for using in my journal, because they won't stick together so much. So I'll have to share those with you in another video. And I might have to do the colour swatch thing, which is also something I don't generally do all the time. But again, my friend Sandy does that, and she just, I can't overstate how much she is inspiring me. So bye for now. See you next time.